Alright, hello everyone, and thank you for tuning in once again to the Black Box Podcast. BBOR, Black Box Online Radio, coming to you from West Virginia. Well, we're continuing with our Genius or Fraud segment here on the channel, and today we're discussing Boris Johnson, the new Prime Minister for the United Kingdom. As I mentioned, I'm American, in case you couldn't tell, so I know we get listeners from time to time coming to us from across the pond in the United Kingdom. Any of you guys, I would definitely love to hear from you. So please drop a comment below anything you would have to say. Now, it was about 3 years ago, probably September or October of 2016, just prior to our American presidential election. I remember I was sitting in a restaurant with a guy from England, and he's trying to tell me all about the political situation that's going on in the United Kingdom. And there was one line that he said that really stood out to me. He said that in the UK there were two politicians named Theresa May and Boris Johnson that nobody ever took seriously, but they should have. And well, look at what happened. And at that time, yes, Theresa May was, of course, already the Prime Minister of the UK, and Boris Johnson is now taking over. He is now taking the reins. Boris Johnson is a very kind of exuberant figure. Some people might even say that he's somewhat of a silly character. But the thing is, though, is he someone who is of above average intelligence who knows how to manipulate the political system? Or is he somebody that just kind of coasted his way into life by kind of slipping through the cracks and just, has a little bit of dumb luck, or in that case, just a lot of dumb luck, or just kind of was able to happen by accident? The accidency, as we call it in America, as opposed to the presidency. That doesn't really sound as good with prime minister. It doesn't have that same ring to it. What do we make of Boris Johnson? Well, what I can say is that, that guy who probably made that comment about how he was a power-hungry politician, yes. Were people not taking him seriously? Yes. Was that Boris Johnson's intention? Most likely. Now, I'm not a mind reader. I can't necessarily tell you every single thing that's going through him, but what I can say is that I believe that perhaps a lot of that is about what Boris Johnson has tried to do. Just the stuff, about like the messing up his hair on purpose, the incident with the zip line in London, and it's always just so much about flash and just. It's we do this in America all the time. If you are not outrageous, you will not get noticed. That's what they've been saying in politics for the last 52 years, and they're probably saying it before that, but definitely since the rise of Richard Nixon in the United States of America. People were talking about that so much, about if you are not outrageous, you will not get noticed. And I would say, though, that Boris Johnson is outrageous in the sense that he's a different type of politician, a different type of character. And I was listening to this program called Global Truths, which is hosted by a guy named Keith Suter, and he even brought up a particular incident when Boris Johnson was mayor of London and David Cameron was still prime minister. And David Cameron referred to London as one of the world's great cities. And Boris Johnson interrupted him and said, the world's greatest city. So is that what Boris Johnson is, like the type of person who is very good at playing off of people's emotions and showing the very proud UK British sentiment and just really captivating the emotion and the feeling of the general public as opposed to other things? If you look at his interview with Andrew Neil about some of his policy stuff, you would really see that he's maybe not the most articulate when it comes to that. And really, in all seriousness, when I've heard Boris Johnson talk about things, I haven't heard him really kind of express extraordinary opinions on a lot of the policies. But once again, I'm American. We only get so much of that. In terms, though, of the kind of comparison of what we have going on in the world, there have been a lot of comparisons to not only Donald Trump, that's the obvious one, but also Geert Wilders in the Netherlands. They're sort of noticing a lot of similarities between him as well, and to a certain extent, Marine Le Pen. I also noticed that the commentators are comparing Boris Johnson to Marine Le Pen from France, except Geert Wilders and Marine Le Pen were unsuccessful, whereas Donald Trump and Boris Johnson were. After James Comey left the FBI, after he was kind of terminated and no longer the FBI director of James Comey, said in his first interview about what he thought about Donald Trump. He said that Donald Trump was a person of above average intelligence. That was the first way that he described him. And most people wouldn't think about that with Donald Trump because he's so outrageous and exuberant, and he's even flamboyant with his language and the hand gestures, not to mention the hair. Oh, wait. I mean, you could just as easily put in Boris Johnson into any of those things. Bojo, the British Trump. I mean, it's just sort of like a blueprint that we have going on. And I don't necessarily think that Boris Johnson would have studied Donald Trump's entire life since he was 7 years old, declaring that he wanted to be the king of the world. And he just like, let's learn about this guy Trump from America. Perhaps at some point in the 2016 election, yes, Johnson would have really wanted to learn from Donald Trump, but he was probably already on that track. I think what Boris Johnson's rise to power really represents is it's just kind of how this is kind of a political trend that we have going on in the world, where it's that type of populism where they're just reaching out to that sort of sentiment of what the people want to hear, and they're giving them exactly what they're asking for. But, and sometimes that's even going to include things, perhaps like nationalism, but also just even what we said about how London's the world's greatest city, just that sort of sense of empowerment and awesomeness and just, hey, everything is awesome or something. You ever see that stuff in the Lego movie and such? That type of thing is kind of what a lot of people were asking for. But with Boris Johnson, we're really going to get a chance to see what he would be like as a leader, and then we can really say a lot more about this type of genius or fraud segment. So that'd be one thing that we can do as kind of a part two. When Boris Johnson, is in the election, right, he's up against Jeremy Hunt. What I can say about him is the first time that I heard Jeremy Hunt in an interview I just thought he was an absolute psychopath. Like, I mean, it's just like fake, 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 fake. I mean, like, is he somebody who doesn't necessarily even have a soul or something like that? I mean, I don't know if I've seen a more kind of robotic, rehearsed, scripted politician in the world. And I would just like, even you know what I mean? Like, if you kind of met that person at a business meeting or something like that, you're like, I don't want to sit next to you. You're probably thinking about how to murder everyone in the room so you can be in charge of this thing. That's my first impression of Jeremy Hunt, but we didn't get him. We got the other guy in power now. And with it, when it comes to Boris Johnson, there is the possibility that he is not that different. I don't know what you guys would say about that. Perhaps I can even throw that out there as a challenge question. Do you believe that if someone has to become prime minister, or if someone has the ability to become prime minister or president or the leader of their country, that it requires a certain sense of sociopathic or psychopathic trait? I mean, like, do you think that that is necessary? Where you just have to be indifferent to the world, kind of lack the moral compass, and just say, I'm going to cut my way to the top no matter what, and I don't care about the consequences? I mean, when I listen to Boris Johnson in interviews, I don't know what you guys would say, I don't get the impression that he is a psychopath the way that I did for somebody like Jeremy Hunt. Or how about other losers? Hillary Clinton. Also, absolutely, she is, just insincere. And, if you really watch some of the extended things, not just like the little 2-second, 3-second clips, when you look at how Hillary Clinton responds to things, very fake, synthetic, and just not a very genuine set of answers that are I mean, it's just she's not a very genuine person. I don't know Jeremy Hunt as well, though, of course, but that's just kind of the first reaction. But it's very possible we could say the same stuff about people like Boris Johnson. I mean, it's one of the things that we just kind of wrestle with is anybody who is trying to climb their way to the top of the political world and the business world and perhaps other markets as well, but particularly those two, politics and business, that it requires someone who is just going to be just an absolute shark and just cut down anything in their way. I mean, I would really hope that that's not the case. And that's one of the things, though, that we always are seeking for in the world. Where is the political leader that believes what they say and then actually has the ability to put their plans into action? Where is that person? I mean, it's a messy world, but like the other side of the coin is like perhaps the little bit more cynical view where people are sort of saying that yeah, it's a broken system. Everybody's a liar. Everyone who gets that far in life is a psychopath. They only care about themselves. They only care about their own power. And they don't care about any of the ideas that they are representing. All they care about is being at the top. And you definitely see some of this stuff in Boris Johnson, for expressing his political ambitions at such an early age and actually continuing onward with it. But I don't think that that is isolated. I noticed that stuff from our other political leaders that like just the people who get elected to the House of Representatives and the Senate, and perhaps it's the same thing with the MPs in the UK. They have that plan as long as they've been alive. Some people enter into politics later, but many people have decided that they've wanted to become a member of the government definitely as early in their teen years, and they tell people about this, and they talk about it, and it's all they talk about, and all the stories that you hear about them when they were a kid was they had to say that they wanted to become a political ladder climber, pretty much. Even Adolf Hitler was described that way as a kid, saying that he just had to be the leader of whatever group activity they were doing, whatever game they wanted to play. Adolf was the one who was in charge. Well, do you see how that can affect somebody? But when we're talking about Boris Johnson, he is someone who perhaps had the ability to maneuver his way through the political world. And there are probably a lot of people who didn't think that Boris Johnson was someone who was ever going to be prime minister. He's someone that they could perhaps dismiss very easily. I mean, like, after he was the mayor of London, I didn't really think that he was going to be too much more influential. We would always see him on the television, and we would always just, hear what he has to say, and you're just like, yeah, okay. And he just didn't seem like he was really kind of striking a chord or anything. But he had that opportunistic drive where he just wants to, it's carpe diem, right? Seize the day. And he has risen to the top. I mean, that's one of the things. So in the terms of genius or fraud, I would definitely say that Boris Johnson has the ability to manipulate the political system. He definitely has the ability to win. Mayor of London, Foreign Secretary, now Prime Minister. He has the ability to succeed in that respect, and not everybody can do that. And it's not an easy game. But the only reason why I specifically chose Boris Johnson is I would say that he is perhaps somebody who has a little bit more know-how involved than a lot of the media outlets are going to give him credit for. And partially I am saying this because we have the parallels with Donald Trump in the United States of America. I mean, I think that Donald Trump also has a little bit more know-how and awareness than what the media gives him credit for. And even if you read Donald Trump's book, Think Like a Billionaire, he talks about all of the things about, pretending not to be interested in conversations, like not paying attention to other people, saying things to undermine other people's confidence. And I know he probably used the ghostwriter in that one the same way he used Tony Schwartz for The Art of the Deal, but it was a different ghostwriter for Think Like a Billionaire. But I mean, that's the stuff that you see that's happening with the presidency. He talks about all of the tactics and strategies that he uses when dealing with people in high-profile power situations. And Boris Johnson is somebody who is perhaps very good at that. So, genius or fraud? Perhaps there's a blending of the two, and I hate to give that as a horrendously anticlimactic answer, because that just means that he's an ordinary politician. So that's a lot of build-up just to get to something like that. But no, I think Boris Johnson has a little bit more intelligence than the media is going to be giving him credit for over the next couple years. One of the things, though, is we're really going to have the opportunity to see what he can do with Brexit and see how what's going to happen with all of that. Because if you've ever heard someone like Theresa May, maybe you could put Brexit on her tombstone, the famous leader who said Brexit means Brexit. Well, sayonara means sayonara, if she can get her Japanese dictionary out. And there's also a certain individual named David Cameron who was also in the process of resignation because of very similar issues. Once again, not an expert on UK politics, but those things happened. And it could really be a turning point for the United Kingdom with somebody like Boris Johnson. or it could be the same old repetitive cycle. What do you think, though? Do you think Boris Johnson is someone of above average intelligence who really knows how to manipulate the system? Or is he just some guy who slipped through the cracks because he wanted to be at the top, but nobody took him seriously, and he kind of used other people's ignorance as an avenue to get to the spot of being the prime minister? What do you really think is going on with him? And if you like, once again, if anyone from the UK gets to hear this, I would love to hear some very kind of detailed things. Tell me about what you think his stances on policies are. Tell me about what you think his stances on cultural issues are. Share anything that you want, because I think it's really a good opportunity to have these things. One of the big reasons why we do this segment, the overwhelming reason why we do Genius or Fraud on this channel, is because I will flat out tell you, I think it's so much better to just, instead of just playing the different sides of the issue, what do they say about immigration? This immigration plan, yes or no? I mean, instead of just asking about what are the sides of their plans, why don't we ask, is this person genuinely fabricating things just so that they can get a following? Is this person just making up crap so that they can kind of get more attention from a particular social group? Is this person lying to us? I think that that's such a better political question to ask, because you might notice that if you're going to ask it in that way, you might get a much more solid answer, and it might be much closer to the truth of what's actually going on with our political system. And that's why we've talked about, it's like you can't even really accept any promise from any politician regarding, their campaign plans and what they pledge to do and what they tell you that they're going to do. It's a very messy world out there, and but the fact of the matter is we can't trust any of them, because people have the ability to lie, and they also have the ability to learn about what people want to hear. They can study those things. They have research teams studying data about what people want to hear, and then they tell them what to hear, and then they say, oh wow, that person is speaking to me, that politician is speaking to me, that person is telling me exactly what I want to hear, I want to vote for this person. And it's not a British or American thing, it's a universal thing. It's not a left or right thing, it's a universal thing. It's not a liberal or conservative thing, it's something for everybody. It's just like, it's a part of being human, and I think it's a characteristic of Western civilization in the last 2,000, maybe 3,000 years, definitely at least 2,000 if we're going to be dealing with the Western world. So, I mean, I think it's good to challenge people about whether or not we think these major level political figures are frauds, or are they genuine, and how did they rise to the top, and how did they get to where they are today? That's all for me now. Until next time.